everyone. This is David Asarno. I want to welcome you to Cellular Healing TV, episode 58. And welcome, Dr. Pompa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Now, today's going to be a really good show because we're basically creating a topic that came from a conversation you had with one of your clients yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. I told him that this was going to be the topic.
So you had a conversation, and we were talking yesterday about the topics that we wanted to speak about today, and what happened is they wanted to know the 5 things that you do every single day and the 5 things that they could do to stay in health. And I agree that this is a really good topic, and no matter if someone is a practitioner or just one of our many viewers, I believe that this is something that all of them just want to know. Hey, what can I do?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it was an amazing question. It was at the end of our time together, our coaching session, and he just randomly asked the question, Dr. Paul, I've got to know, what are the 5 things that you do, to stay in amazing health, And I said, gosh, I feel like that I'm being interviewed. I said, that's a great question. I was taken back by it, actually, and so I immediately spit them out, boom, 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 and actually I gave him 6, so I combined it to make it a perfect 5. I put 1 within the number 1 here, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great question, and these are the things that I do. These are the things that I do that, here I am, I'll be 50 this year, and, I don't think I look 50. However, more importantly, I know this for certain. I absolutely don't feel 50, so, I have the energy, the stamina, and all those things of my teenagers, so I can keep up with them, and I have very little body fat, and I'm healthier now than I was when I was in my 20s, honestly, even before I was sick, I always say. So, yeah, I must be doing something right, and I do practice what I preach, so there you go.
Well, you do a lot of things right, and why don't we share? What is the number 1? Let's look. It's going to be like David Letterman. Drum roll, please.
Yeah. Number 1.
Number 1.
What's that?
What is number 1?
Yeah. Look, this is something that I say all the time. Now, the doctors that I train and coach, they'll tell you I say this all the time to them. The key to living longer, David, the key to living longer. You've been at many of my seminars. What's the key to living longer, I always say?
Controlling glucose.
I call it the 800-pound gorilla in the room, because here's why. You go to these natural health conferences, all these doctors in natural health and doing all these healthy things, they're always looking for that little thing, that one little supplement or something. And the 800-pound gorilla in the room is most of them, if not all of them, are not controlling glucose. The key to health, the key to preventing cancer, preventing any disease, is controlling glucose. Most Americans, even what we would call healthy Americans, they get glucose spikes, glucose up, glucose down. That's not the standard American diet. I would say that's most diets, up, down, up, down. Even people who are eating healthy diets are getting glucose and insulin spikes, which ages you at the cellular level.
Let's talk a little bit about glucose and controlling it, because I think there's a lot of misnomers out there. People say, well, I don't eat a heavy sugar diet. However, if you look at most people in the morning, they'll have a nice bowl of oatmeal, or they'll have, this whole grain cereal that, this organic cereal that they get off the shelf. How does that contribute to a glucose spike in the morning?
Straight up, we know this. 1 bowl of oatmeal, right? It's equivalent to basically your glucose levels do the same thing as drinking a 12-ounce soda. Well, doesn't it lower my cholesterol? Because that's what the media tells you every day, and surely I'm doing something great, right? But look, it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You get the glucose spike an hour afterwards, 2 hours afterwards, glucose is sailing up. So, whether it's a whole grain, 2 pieces of toast in the morning, same glucose spike as a 12-ounce soda. So, that's what I'm talking about right there, is the standard American diet. Forget it, because when I say the standard American diet, people say I'm not doing that, I'm not eating McDonald's, Burger King, or whatever the heck else it is. But so let's say this, the standard healthy American diet, okay, healthy is causing glucose spikes up and down all day. Those spikes are what drives something called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And those advanced glycations are what age you. That makes you look older. It makes your collagen age faster. It gives you wrinkles. It gives, it creates pain. It creates inflammation in your joints, your skin. It causes autoimmune. I could go on and on. Fact is, and it shortens something called telomeres, which we've talked about, David, on some past shows. I think you and I did that show. I said it's the only biological clock, human biological clock that we know of, meaning the shorter these telomeres get on your chromosomes, the closer you get to death. So we can look at somebody's cellular age versus their actual age by measuring these telomeres. So therefore, you may be 45, but you could have the cellular age of a 65-year-old based on these telomeres, because that's how much they've shortened. So therefore, when you raise these glucose spikes, you are shortening those telomeres rapidly, and you are closer to death.
And there are ways through diet, well, I was going to get into the next topic, but there are ways that we can turn back the proverbial fountain of youth through changing gene expression, through changing the diet, through all the things that we talk about on Cellular Healing TV.
Well, these five things.
Yeah. So let's talk about number two. Number two.
Hold on, before we get off number one, though, I do want to say this, because I said control glucose, because the question is how to. And I think all of these apply to controlling glucose. Get rid of grains in your diet. Limit them, okay? Healthy people can very limit them. Every once in a while, I do have some quinoa, which is more like a seed. Every once in a while, I'll have some wild rice or brown rice. Limit it, but it's very, very limited. And when I was sick, David, I had no grains in my diet for at least 5 or 6 years. That's the key, controlling glucose. And increasing the healthy fats that we've talked about on past shows. That means saturated fats, cholesterol, and all those good fats, most of the fats that people think are bad, increase those. Those help control glucose. In moderate protein, David, because most people, they go on an Atkins diet or something or whatever it is, and they start throwing a lot of protein, which will age you prematurely. So here it is. Ready? Low control glucose. So absolutely low carb. And again, I believe I eat a moderate carb diet. So we're going to talk about diet variation in a minute. But in this country, that's extremely low carb diet. So to me, it's just a normal diet. So I hate using the word low carb. But absolutely high fat, moderate protein. So if you're 150 pounds, going over 100 grams of protein a day will actually be bad for most people. Because some people, get away with, maybe 150, yeah, but not many. Genetics do play a role there. But moderate protein, I think, like I said, for someone weighing 150 pounds, maybe 75, to 100 is, very moderate and very safe amount.
Please a question about a grain that that I use, chia. How are chia seeds?
Yeah, chia seeds are great. I mean, most seeds are great. They contain a lot of healthy fats, and we'll talk about this in the next one. I'm tipping my hand, but there's times to move in and out of diets, because people say, well, how many carbs? Well, that depends. We'll get to that on the next one.
So number two.
Yes.
Number two is diet variation.
Diet variation, David. Diet variation is, I wrote an article. You can go on my website. Under article archive, punch in the search box diet variation. You will find an article about this. You will also find articles that I wrote about ketosis and the advantages of ketosis. Look, when we look at most primitive diets, David, before we started planting, before we started growing grains, most people were in a ketosis diet, meaning that your carbs are so low that your cells shift from glucose burning to fat burning, where they utilize most of their energy from fat sources. And that's a very amazing state to be in, because when your cells are burning glucose for energy, aka 99% of America, it creates a lot of byproducts that age you prematurely, creates more inflammation. So one of the things that we do with our very challenged and sick clients is oftentimes we use ketosis as a tool. We get their cells to burn fat for energy only, not glucose. We shift them into this ketonic state. And again, for more details, read the articles I wrote on ketosis. But we drop their carbohydrate intake typically below 50 grams a day. That puts them in ketosis in about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, and then they become pure fat burners. Burning fat produces less byproducts. The example I love to give, David, if you turn your stove on, that gas, the flame that comes up, do you see any smoke? No. Yeah. That's fat burning, you know, and using ketones. Ketones are burning, your brain uses those for energy. They burn clean. Light a log in your fireplace, you see smoke and you need a chimney, right? Yeah, well, that's glucose. So, you know, putting people in this state down-regulates inflammation. And a lot of amazing things happen when you lower glucose to those levels, make your cell become a fat burner. You know, and what happens is we down-regulate inflammation. And ketones have an amazing healing to the brain and the cell. And those are the byproducts. When you burn fat, you give off these ketones because your brain can only use those guys for energy. Okay, so, you know, these ketones your brain uses for energy heal the brain, heal the cells. Fat burns cleaner than glucose, bottom line. But here's the key to diet variation, David. I learned this, you know, working with very, very challenged clients. When we take people and we change their diets from a keto diet where they're only burning fat, very low carb, we do that for a few months. And then we bring them into a higher healthy carbohydrate diet, maybe up it to 100 grams, maybe even 150, and eating more vegetables, berries, healthy grain, you know, more seeds, these things, nuts and things, these things that are higher in healthy carbohydrates, okay? I didn't mention eating more grain necessarily, you know, but what happens is we do that for a period of time, and then we move back into a lower carbohydrate diet. That variation seems to work magic on the metabolism and fixing the metabolism. So people who were unable to lose weight, people who were challenged with certain things, all of a sudden they go back to it, the next diet, and they notice this massive weight loss. David, we've done other shows on diet variation on Cellular Healing TV. So if you go back, folks, and watch some of those past episodes, I don't know which ones they are, David. I don't know how they would find those. Just, you know.
Go to cellularhealing.tv, and we have a listing of all of our prior episodes. And I think if you register, you'll get emailed a summary of what topics are in each of them.
Yeah, so diet variation works. Let me give them an analogy so they can understand. If you talk to your trainers, right, working out, if you do the same thing in the gym, day in, day out, you start to not make gains anymore. Well, we notice the same thing with diet. So what happens is that your body stops making certain gains. When you switch it, something magical happens in the survival mechanism, in the nerve system, that your body ups the efficiency and the metabolism with this shift. Well, look, if we look at our ancestors, we realize that they were forced into diet variation. Why? Because of seasons, because of different changes that occurred, you know, in the time where in the winter time, you know, they didn't have access to the fruits and the vegetables. And what did they rely on? They relied on, you know, more fats and the buffalo meats, and you know, they ate fat. It was something that kept them going in the winter season. Summer came, they were so sick of the meat and the fat, you know, that they started eating more vegetables and fruits. That's diet variation. You could vary it, within a few months, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever it is, but give yourself some variation, you know, with that. And again, read the article, and I talk about how to use ketosis with diet variation, you know, and kind of move in and out of ketosis as a tool to become a more efficient fat burner, but also I feel it really just helps you in all general health.
Let's talk about one of my favorite things that I first learned from you, which is intermittent fasting.
Yep. That's
number 3.
Yep. So the third thing that I do every day is I intermittent fast. Now, David, you just held up whey water. That's a bottle called whey water. Yeah. We utilize that in what I call block intermittent fast, where periodically we do 4 days of just whey water or just 4 days of bone stock. Some of my more challenged clients, we do that monthly. Sometimes we do that once or twice a month, those 4 days. But there's something that I do, and that was the question, what do? I do
Yeah.
those fasts periodically, though. I do that periodically. However, and again, it's diet variation, isn't it? But what I do is I intermittent fast daily. And again, articles written on this, and also past cellular healing TV shows if you want more details. But intermittent fasting daily is, I believe, magic. When we look at studies, how people increase, even animal studies, how long they live and how they do it healthy. Caloric restriction is always at the forefront. It works. It's the real deal. But David, I've always said this: we can't do this because this is not good caloric restriction. Okay, I'm done eating now. Moderation. I'm done eating. Pushing food away. No. That's not what very healthy. That's not what the Tibetans do and the Okinawans do. No, they eat till full every time. And what we find, though, is at the end of the day, they don't consume nearly as many calories as the average American, or every American for that matter. They're eating till they're full, they're just not hungry. So if you follow me around in my day, you'll say, gosh, you're not eating. Well, we know that eating revs up your metabolism, it revs up your DNA, it revs up the cell, and it ages you prematurely. So we know that restricting calories, but here's how you restrict calories correctly. You just simply are so efficient at burning fat for energy. Glucose is normal because, see, when you're intermittent fasting, your body's using fat for energy. So I go 16, 18 hours from dinner. I don't eat through the night, obviously. Don't eat breakfast, and I eat a very small meal, fat and protein, typically around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I eat a very big dinner, and that's very important. So at the end of the day, David, my caloric restriction is much less. Aren't you hungry from that time? No, because my body's glucose levels are perfect.
Well, one of the things I've noticed is you get more energy, and it's like consistent. You're just like, you can keep going and going and going. It's not like you have that big carb meal and all of a sudden you're like, I'm tired.
That's right. But here, look, the average person watching this, they go without breakfast and they're bonking out 2 hours later. I need to eat. Well, yeah, at that moment, right now, you're not efficient enough yet. So you have to give it time. My advice is go into ketosis first. Again, read the article on how to do that. Go into ketosis first, and then it will make intermittent fasting easier. Why? Because when you're in ketosis, you become a very efficient fat burner. So now going without food for long stretches, your body's burning fat for energy and your glucose levels stay up. So your brain works, you feel good. But the key is, at the end of the day, I've consumed far less calories, and not because I'm pushing food away. As a matter of fact, my dinner, David, we eat like crazy, right? You and I down at the table, people would be like, wow, we feast. I start sometimes eating around 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock, and I'll eat for 2 hours. Just like in the old days, and the Romans and the Greeks and the Jewish people and the Italians, right? They ate. The dinner was the biggest meal of the day, of course. It was a big deal. In Europe, breakfast barely exists, aka continental breakfast. So in America, breakfast is the biggest meal of the day, right? And what else are we taught in America, David? Eat 5, 6 meals a day if you want to lose weight. Have you heard that?
Eat every 2 hours. It's interesting. Years ago, when I was in Israel and I went to have breakfast, they had salad for breakfast.
Yeah. Breakfast means break fast, meaning that get up, get going. Yeah, so listen, we know that fasting raises growth hormone. So when you fast all night long, you don't eat in the morning, continue that fast, and your body's burning its fat, you're raising up your growth hormone, which is anti-aging. You get controlled glucose, which is anti-aging. Caloric restriction without even pushing food away, anti-aging. You add to that, going in and out of ketosis, where your body's burning fat, which burns cleaner than glucose, anti-aging. You see, it works. It works, and let's get back to the 5-6 meals a day. Yeah, the average American that doesn't have the ability hormonally to become a fat burner, which is most people in this country, because we eat too much glucose, too many grains, does that work for fat loss? Yes, it does. It'll help you lose 10 pounds. The problem is you age faster, you're creating more energy into your cell, which is more toxins into the cell, and here's the thing, it doesn't work long term for fat loss because you never give your body a chance to burn fat. You're always burning the food you're eating, and you're never giving yourself long enough periods without eating to burn this food that's around your waist, right? That's energy. So, David, we are burning that fat, all the time. David, look, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. We spent some time together.
You're not going to embarrass me.
All right, good. You're hard to embarrass. We spent some time together, and when you first met me, you started applying these things, and your health transformed. I watched you, like, just your waist go, right? Your skin got better, everything got better. Something magical happened in your health. You started doing what I do. And then I saw you last time, and I said, David, what happened? Life sucked you in, right? You started doing some diet variation, but not in a good way. You went off to the old diet or something. Stopped intermittent fasting, right? You stopped doing some of these things. You put some chub on the waist again. Your skin wasn't as good. Your energy wasn't as good. Am I right?
I'm back.
I know. So tell them.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy. I mean, it's that slippery slope. Well, first of all, when I went on antibiotics, when I got bit by the tick, all of a sudden that messed up the gut, and I didn't go to fix it, and that was the first mistake. And then over the holidays, had some carbs, and then all of a sudden that carb addiction, sneaks back up on you. But literally, I mean, we were together about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Was it that? Month and a half? And literally just got
2 months ago.
2 months ago. I mean, you could see in my face. You saw my abs again. That I'm not going to lift up my shirt.
Before the show, you went, look, and he lifted up. He says, I'm not going to do that during the show.
So what I can tell you that it has to be something that you do consistently, and it shows how quickly that slippery slope is if we go and we don't do the right thing. So, everyone wants their life back. And the problem is, people, once you get your life back, it's easy to forget what it was like beforehand. And then it's like, well, I could do this. Now that I'm better, I can do this. And the problem is, I can do this because I can do this again, and I can do this again. And all of a sudden you can go back to where you were, especially if you were in a bad state. You don't want to be down that slippery slope again. Mm-hmm. So if you're, and one of the things actually I know that you tell people, don't do this unless you're committed to stick through it. And actually I now understand a little bit more why, because, it takes so long and so much work to get on track, and it's so easy to get off track if you're not careful.
Yeah, you had transformed the opposite, very quickly. But like I said, seeing you recently as you transformed back. Thank God, But that's stressful on the body.
Part of it was part of my routine is this product.
Yeah.
Intermittent fast, and by the way, you can have coffee. I mean, I have coffee right now. You guys recommend an MCT oil I put into the coffee. I can use stevia. You can use, heavy cream in there, and that's fine. Yeah. And I mean, that's really the first thing in the morning. I sort of got a routine where it's organic coffee. I grind it. I French press it. It's sort of like my wake up routine in the morning, sort of to get going, is sort of like making that. But then, later throughout the day, it's this, and many times I'll put chia seeds in here. And that's why I was asking about the chia seeds, because it's sort of like
chia seeds in there and some protein, whey protein.
Yeah,
that's the first meal later in the day.
Yeah, I put some beta A2 protein in there now, along with the chia seeds, and then I don't eat until dinner. I mean, I'll go work out. Like I'll do this all day long. I'll have this. I'll actually go to the gym, or go to a class and work out, and then we have dinner at 7 p.m. I mean, it's our routine. We eat dinner at 7 p.m. pretty much every day. So I got off of that routine, and I'm glad I'm back on.
All right. Someone came to say hello. Hello, David. This is Remy. Everybody's like Cellular here on TV. Isn't she so cute? My goodness. Don't you just want to gobble her up?
She always makes appearances.
She always comes in. Well, usually my other dog's laying right here, and they get into a snarling like battle. And she goes up and she like puts her tongue in his mouth and licks and kisses, and he's a little older, so he doesn't tolerate. And all you hear is all these grumblings. That, you've probably heard it on CHTV and just thought one of us had a gurgly stomach, but it's the dogs. Anyway, that's exactly right. I mean, it is that product there is, it's called whey water, is called healing water, and it has a profound effect in so many organ systems of the body, and that's why we fast people with it, intermittently. But you're using it every day, and that's exactly right. And it's that simple. I mean, you lose your hunger when you become that efficient fat burner. You're anti-aging. Obviously you become more efficient fat burner. Obviously your brain works better, and you're aging slower, protecting those telomeres. So yeah, I mean, it works. It's so simple. I mean, this is the way humans are really meant to, to be. Humans are, nocturnal eaters. Really, what happens when you eat a bigger dinner, David, is that it tells your parasympathetic nerve system, it kicks that nerve system in, and that's what we need kicked in to go to sleep. So hours after, you start to get sleepy and you want to go to bed. When we're not eating, it kicks in our sympathetic nervous system, and that gives us energy and stimulation that we need through the day. So when you eat too small of a dinner, you're still in sympathetic mode. You need that bigger meal to kick in the parasympathetic mode that we need to have a deep night's sleep. So it's the circadian rhythm that goes along with the bigger meal at night. If you don't eat a big enough dinner, like we eat that very small meal in the afternoon, and that's great. But if you eat too small a meal at dinner, your body will think it's starving. So that big meal at dinner, I talk about that in the articles, is very, very important. And again, that's what our ancestors did, because it tells our body we have plenty, and it doesn't go into a starving mode or would just store fat no matter what you're eating. So that's why caloric restriction, David, doesn't work, because people are just pushing food away, and their metabolism goes lower and lower and lower because they think they're starving. Our bodies know they're not starving. So we are consuming less calories at the end of the day, but we're eating that big meal, so we don't get that starvation occurrence that happens with caloric restriction diets, which I'm a big no-no of, or a big non-fan, if you will. Caloric restriction diets don't work. They work short-term, 10, maybe 15 pounds, and then you stop losing weight, unhealthy, bad. Anyways, well, David, you brought us into, I'm going to switch 5. Yeah, let's bring 5 to 4, because you said something else that you started doing again, right? High burst training, right? High intensity training. And you said you even do that, David, on an empty stomach, right? Didn't you say that?
It's funny because my son Rose Crew, and he's like, Dad, you've got to have something before you work out. My coach says that I've got to have like a carbs or protein bar. I'm like, Josh, don't listen. But yeah, I don't need to eat beforehand. I have the chia and the protein in the whey water, which, by the way, everyone can get on your website. If they'd like to get some, they can get it on your website. But yeah, why don't we talk a little bit about that high intensity training?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against endurance training. It's I'm a cyclist. I love it, actually. Genetically, I'm built for it. However, when we look at studies on aging slower, when we look at studies on weight loss, high-intensity training is far superior. You get a growth hormone rise during high-intensity burst type of training, interval type of training. which really is more of what man is supposed to do, a human is supposed to do. I mean, we're meant to chase our prey down. We're meant to run, then stop and run. And that's really what it is, getting that heart rate up high enough to where you can't breathe, right? I mean, where it's tough to breathe, and then resting and doing it again. That's high-intensity training. You get a massive growth hormone rise. Endurance training, what we've been taught in the past, is stay in the fat-burning zone, right? And that's aerobic training. There's some benefits to it, but for weight loss and aging slower, there's far greater benefits for the high-intensity training. When you do a lot of endurance training, your growth hormone drops, so your anabolic hormones. When you do high intensity, it goes up. Those are the hormones you need to lose weight, stay lean, and help heal your brain.
We're talking here about when most people say, I'm going to go out for a 4 or 5 mile run, and they're just jogging, and they're doing that for that endurance versus getting your heart rate up into 90+%, holding it there for a minute or two, and then dropping it down, and then getting it back into the game.
Well, when you look at endurance athletes, they battle oxidative stress. They battle aging prematurely. They do. Look at them. Look at those marathon runners. They look much older than they are, and typically they're not even as lean. They're skinny fat. They lose their muscle because they're in a catabolic state. And I've been that person too. And they burn into their muscle. So it's definitely not as healthy a lifestyle. I think intermittently, just like diet variation, doing some longer types of exercise are actually beneficial. I think, again, varying it around is great. So if you are that endurance runner person, first of all, I don't recommend it for weight loss. So stop the madness. Stop the treadmill running for an hour or whatever the heck you're doing, the aerobics classes. Do only high intensity. But if you are healthy enough to do endurance, then vary it. Put it in every once in a while. Or if you're that endurance person training for a marathon, put burst training in more often. Those people are learning that just doing the miles and the miles and the miles actually make them weaker. And when they start doing high intensity training, they actually do much better. But resistive training, weightlifting, things like that, yoga, whatever it is, things that resist on your muscles, that's a form of burst training. Your heart rate goes up very high, when you're lifting weights. So that too is a form of burst training. Again, many articles on that, David, on my website. Burst training, put them in. I mean, we've talked a lot in cellular healing shows. We've done a lot on high-intensity training and the benefits. But you mentioned something else, and I did an article in the last few months anyway, and I think it was skinning. Remember, actually, you saw it in Florida. I was trying to motivate you to get back into it, but it was skinning. And what does Dr. Pompa do, this skinning, and how does that improve your brain and weight loss? Well, basically, it was high-intensity training while you are intermittent fasting, while you're not eating, just like you said you do, because we know that we get this massive growth hormone spike, and it does give us that extra anti-aging piece. Doing high-intensity training, remember, you're burning stored glucose. What happens for the next 36 hours, your body will burn its fat stores even more efficiently, raising up its growth hormone to do it. When it spikes up the growth hormone, now you become this efficient fat burner for the next 36 hours, and you're utilizing your fat to replace the glucose. It works. You get the growth hormone spike, fixes the brain, helps you be healthier, live longer. So just all of these things fit together. Do you see that?
Yeah.
We're doing this high-intensity training while we're intermittent fasting, putting yourself in ketosis. I mean, it really is quite something how this works. So.
Now, the other thing then is, and we'll wrap it up with 4, which is now 5, is periodic cellular detox.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, we can't avoid all of the toxins in today's society. I think most people would agree with that. I mean, no matter how, listen, we avoid them as much as we can in our life. However, we are still exposed every day to neurotoxins from flame retardants, in drapes, carpets. We walk in and out of buildings that are just loaded with fragrances. The food, even though we eat so clean, is still getting exposed. Heavy metals and water, air, you name it. Periodic true cellular detox is something that all of us do periodically. I talked about how we raise intracellular glutathione in the cell, how we utilize the G cell and the bind, that intracellular detox system. And periodically I even do some of my heavy metal detox, which is more specific, whole nother show. I've written 3 articles on when detox becomes dangerous. Read those. It will give you a better clue and understanding of what true cellular detox really is. Almost every article I talk about it. So it's all over my videos. It's all over my articles. Because most people do detox wrong. It's not a colon cleanse, although that can help move toxins out. Not against it, but it's not true cellular detox. I talk about a brain phase, David, of getting the toxins out of the brain. Almost every article I talk about that. And it's like, and we have ways to do that. But look, detoxification done right at the cellular level is something that everybody needs to live longer and live healthier. So
I'm going to touch on something because for people who may be here listening to us, watching us, or listening to us on iTunes, on our podcast for the first time, one of the analogies that you made early on when we met several years ago was, and it really made sense to me, and most cleanses, most detox that you buy off the shelf are sort of like that street sweeper mentality.
Yeah.
Street sweepers going down the street, I remember you saying this, because you can visually see it. What happens? Well, if you're driving behind there, you've got to, or anywhere around there, all you see is a big cloud of dust, because what's happening? It's moving that dust around, it goes up in the air, and then it resettles somewhere else. And one of the reasons that, most people don't feel great afterwards is because they have that happen. They may be doing something, and all it is releasing some toxins, but then they're moving around your body and resettling somewhere else, versus having a system that actually binds them and then gets them out of your system.
I think that's great. Thank you. I forgot I gave that analogy. That is a great analogy. I need to give it more. I think that is in article number 1 is when detox is dangerous. I think that's when I wrote that article. Or it's in R number 1. R number 1 article, because R number 1 is removing the source. Maybe it's in that article. It's in one of those 2. R number 1, removing the source, or when detox is dangerous, part 1 of 3. So yeah, that's a great analogy, David, and I really described that system very well in both of those articles. So look there. But just as a quick review, this is your cell, right? And can you see that? I can't see if you can see it. Can you? Okay. This is your cell. The toxins start to accumulate in here, especially when this membrane becomes inflamed, which inflammation is the cause of like every disease everyone knows, this is really what we mean. This cell membrane becomes inflamed. Now you can't get the good things in to make energy. When your brain works, people go, I have no energy, my brain's not working. Your cell membrane's inflamed. So R number 2, by the way, regenerate the cell membrane. But anyways, you have to get the good stuff in and the bad stuff out. That's true cellular detox right here. But then what happens to those toxins? They make their way where, David? Let's see how good of a student you are.
I can't see.
All right, hold on. Just hang on. Well, I just wanted you to come up with the answer. Uh-oh, my pen is dying because I had it upside down. Okay, here we go. Okay. That, believe it or not, is a liver.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Liver. I better write liver. All right. Most of the toxins make their way to the liver. Some of them make their way to the kidneys. Wait till you see these little guys. Those are kidneys. Look like 2 bananas. I don't know. So it goes to your kidneys, goes to your liver, gets processed. The liver brings them to where?
The gut?
Yes. Thank you. Brings them to the snake. That's your gut. All right. So the liver then processes it into the gut. And then we hope that it makes its way, and I could draw a little toilet down here, out of the body.
Most guts are really leaky.
Yeah. Right, well, that's the problem. Guts are leaky today, which goes right back into your system. I could draw a brain up here if I was really clever. Oh, look at that. That's a little man. See that? See that? That's our brain. They make their way into the brain. David loves my artist. Because when they recirculate, they start crossing our blood-brain barrier, working our way back into our body, creating symptoms we don't like, right? So anyways, that's bad. But also, a lot of the toxins are bound up in the bile, B-I-L-E, and when you digest fat, you dump bile. Well, your body's designed to reabsorb bile back to the liver so it doesn't have to remake it. So what happens is it brings the toxins right back. It's called autointoxication. So you get autointoxication via leaky gut. You get autointoxication from just the bile binds a lot of the toxins and keeps bringing them back. People live their life in this circulation. So we put catch agents down here, one called bind.
Higher. Bring it up higher.
Yep. We put catch agents in the gut, like catcher's mitts. So when we do dump those toxins, it does bring it out of the body, and we don't auto-intoxicate. And then we give things here to fix the cell membrane. This is where all my core cellular products really come involved in. My 5 R's is really true cellular detox. Read those articles, because true detox, you have to fix the cell membrane to move good things in, good things out. You have to restore the cellular energy. You have to reduce this inflammation, and you have to reestablish methylation. 5 R's to fix the cell, to detox the cell, brings the toxins down here, and then we have to make sure they exit the body. And then when we do heavy metal work, then we use more specific agents to get rid of the heavy metals out of the brain and out of the cell. And again, in some of those articles, I talk about that. But this system is really what works. You know, colon cleanses, infrared saunas, all that does really is help, you know, make sure we don't reabsorb some of those toxins. But this is true cellular detox. That's something, David, that we all do. We do it periodically. You know, we've all become experts in it.
We all should. You know, it's interesting. Since we've been hanging, you know, I talk a lot about, you know, what you talk about. And it's funny because of the hypnosis of what people are brainwashed, you know, and hearing on TV and news. Josh actually, in his AP Human Geography class, they're actually talking about food sources. And the other day in the car, he said, "Hey, Dad, did you know that they changed green back in the 50s and there was this guy, Morton Spurlock?"
Morton Spurlock.
Yes. So Josh brought it up, and so he's like, "Dad, we really can't eat any of the food if it's not organic." I mean, it's funny that we talk about schools in general, but he's a freshman, and they're actually teaching the good stuff to them to be careful. They're talking about how the genetically modified and what that could do. And you know, it's interesting to hear with all the negative, you know, the negative press. They're actually talking about some good things in school these days.
Yeah, that's great. You know, and we talk about toxins and not avoiding them. You know, folks, look, if you're eating conventional rice, conventional grains, oatmeal, you are getting a massive exposure to a chemical called glyphosate, which puts holes right in your gut, in your brain. I mean, massive problems with this. You know, I wrote an article called, I think it's not just gluten. Read the article, folks. Pass it on to your friends. It's not just gluten. I talk about the dangers of genetically modified foods. It is stunning what this is doing. Monsanto, you know, has bamboozled the public, and, you know, all its propaganda, you know, to tell people that their products are safe, that these GMO crops are safe. Baloney. Other countries are banning these things, not even letting them in. They're loaded with this chemical glyphosate. By the way, they manufacture the chemical, so they're making plants that we can spray gobs of this stuff on. You know, now they're doing it on all grains to desiccate it. I talk about that in the article. We're being massively exposed. We wonder why we have these kids that are allergic to everything, and people allergic to every food. And you know, David, I'm telling you, where are we going to be, you know, in 10, 20 years? You know,
I actually think that I saw an article yesterday where it was somewhere, the World Health Organization or some major organization said that glyphosate may be a cancer-causing agent, and Monsanto stock dropped. And all of a sudden, the word actually is starting to get out there. And I think that
the first person died.
What's that?
The first person died from GMOs. Confirmed. I said this question when I heard that. I said, how do they confirm someone died from GMOs? I don't even understand that. Well, they ate a genetically modified tomato. It was genetically modified, you know, with certain fish DNA. They were allergic to seafood of some sort, right? And they ate the tomato and had an anaphylactic shock, and they died. So, I mean, but it shows you that you share DNA, right? This is scary stuff. Listen, you know, read the article. But listen, that's why, again, true cellular detox is so important. We have to get this stuff out of us, because once it becomes in our cells, now it's altering our DNA. And now all of a sudden we start expressing the diseases of our genetic weakness. Listen, this is not like when we were kids.
A major issue when you're sharing DNA with things that people may be deathly allergic to. and there's no label warning telling you any of that. People, that is very scary.
You combine that with over-vaccination. We did a show last week, right? In the show last week and the week before, we had Jeff Hayes on with BOT, you know, and then we had Mary Toko on, you know, who has talked about the truth about vaccinations, educating ourselves. We're vaccinating adults and kids, and then the glyphosate. I mean, it's unbelievable. So maybe the most important thing that we talked about today is periodic, true cellular detox. Man, you know, David, I tell you what, these 5 things, if we could just, maybe we should just do every show on getting everyone to do these 5 things. You know what? We're going to write an article. We're going to put these 5 things in an article, you know, and, you know, because we got to continue this message out. I mean, you know, people see us and say, okay, how are we expressing health? You know, we were sick at one time. How do we do it? I'll tell you what, these 5 things are huge. So if you've already lost your health, I'm going to say this, we have trained practitioners. You know, I have clients all over the world, David, who we have a massive amount of testimonies to. We bring them back to health, utilizing very specific, you know, protocols and detox, and you know, but we're training doctors around the country, you know, for this purpose, you know. But if you're just want to maintain your health, live longer, live healthy, these 5 things are key. So
awesome. Thank you, Dr. Pompa. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and those who are listening it on a replay and iTunes and podcasts. If you want information, drpompa.com, www.drpompa.com. This is David Asarno on behalf of Dr. Pompa and my co-host Warren Phillips, who wasn't able to be with us here today. Have an amazing rest of your day and an amazing weekend, and we'll see you next week.
See you, folks.
Bye-bye.